The sky was gray that morning, as if it too was mourning. Evelyn stood by her son Liam's grave, her hands clutching the folded program from the funeral. She felt like a ghost, empty and hollow, her heart aching with every breath. Friends and relatives came, hugged her, whispered condolences, but she barely heard them. The only thing she saw was Liam's photo on the stand, his warm smile now just a memory. When the last person left, Evelyn stayed. She knelt by the grave, pressing her hand against the fresh dirt. "I'm sorry," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I should have protected you." Her sister, Amelia, stood a few steps away, arms crossed, looking impatient. "Evelyn," she called out. "It's over. You need to move on." Evelyn turned, her tear-streaked face shocked. "Move on." Her son had just been buried. She didn't answer, just stood up and walked back to her car, too numb to fight. That night, Evelyn didn't sleep. She sat on the couch staring at old pictures of Liam, remembering his laughter, his dreams of traveling, the way he used to hug her before leaving for work. At 6 a.m., her phone rang. "Mrs. Stroud." It was her accountant. His voice was hesitant. "I'm calling about the transfer documents you signed. The company's sale is complete. The payment has been wired to your sister's account." Evelyn froze. "What sale?" There was a pause on the other end. "The paperwork shows both owners agreed to sell. Your sister had power of attorney from your father's estate, so—" Evelyn didn't wait to hear the rest. Her blood turned cold. She grabbed her keys and drove straight to Amelia's house. When Amelia opened the door, she wasn't crying, she wasn't grieving, she was laughing. Music was playing softly in the background, a half-finished glass of wine in her hand. "You sold my business?" Evelyn's voice cracked, part pain, part rage. "Yes," Amelia said casually, taking a sip of wine. "And you should thank me. You were never going to handle it after Liam's death. Someone had to make a decision." Evelyn felt her knees weaken. That company was her life's work. 20 years of late nights, sacrifices, and sweat, gone in a single signature. "You had no right." "I had every right," Amelia replied, her tone sharp. "Half of it was mine. I just made it easier for both of us. You can take your share and, I don't know, go on a retreat or something. Cry it out." That was it. Something inside Evelyn broke, not the way Amelia expected. She didn't scream, didn't cry. Instead, she walked closer until she was standing right in front of Amelia. Her voice was calm, steady, almost cold. "You took everything from me when I was at my son's funeral," she said. "So listen carefully. By tomorrow, you will lose something too." Amelia raised an eyebrow and laughed. "Are you threatening me? You can't do anything. The deal is done." Evelyn just smiled faintly, grabbed her purse from the chair, and turned to leave. "Enjoy your wine tonight," she said quietly, "because tomorrow it will taste different." She left Amelia standing there, confused but slightly unsettled. On the way home, Evelyn didn't cry anymore. Her tears had turned into resolve. If Amelia thought she could ruin her during the worst moment of her life, she was wrong. Evelyn had nothing left to lose, which meant she had nothing to fear. That night, while the rest of the world slept, Evelyn sat at her kitchen table with her laptop open. She started digging through documents, contracts, anything with Amelia's name on it. Her grief had turned into something sharper, a storm forming in silence. As midnight approached, she made one call. "Mr. Collins," she said when her lawyer picked up, his voice groggy from sleep. "I need your help, and I don't care what it costs." The lawyer hesitated for a moment, then said, "Tell me everything." And she did. Every word, every detail. By the time she finished, Mr. Collins was fully awake. "Meet me in the morning," he said firmly. "We'll stop her." Evelyn closed her laptop, her mind clearer than it had been in weeks. For the first time since Liam's death, she felt something powerful. Not happiness, not peace, but control. As the first rays of dawn broke through the window, she looked at Liam's photo on the table. "I promise you," she whispered, "she won't get away with this." The morning light crept into Evelyn's kitchen, but she hadn't slept a single minute. Her eyes were swollen, her hands shaking slightly, but her mind was sharper than ever. Grief had been her chain for days, but now, anger had become her fuel. When she arrived at Mr. Collins' office, he was already waiting. He was a sharp man in his 50s, glasses resting low on his nose, files stacked on his desk. He looked at her with quiet seriousness. "Evelyn," he said, "your sister took advantage of your grief. But trust me, no deal is final until we examine the fine print." Evelyn sat down, clutching her purse tightly. "I don't want revenge for myself," she whispered. "But Liam, He deserved better than this. She mocked me while I was burying my son. I can't let her win. Mr. Collins nodded. Then we'll fight her with the only weapon she doesn't expect, the law. He opened a folder and began digging through documents Evelyn had emailed him overnight. The business contract, the ownership transfer, old tax files. As he read, his frown deepened. Interesting. Amelia didn't declare certain assets. And she used her power of attorney in a way that looks very questionable. If we push, a judge might freeze her accounts until this is investigated. Evelyn leaned forward, her voice low. Do it. For hours they worked. Evelyn answered every question, signed every paper, and provided every record she had kept over the years. Collins moved like a surgeon, cutting through Amelia's schemes with precision. He discovered unpaid taxes, outstanding debts, and hidden loans Amelia had taken out secretly. It wasn't just greed. Amelia was drowning in financial problems, and selling the business had been her way out. Now it makes sense, Collins muttered. She didn't just want to hurt you. She needed money fast. She thought your grief would keep you too weak to notice until it was too late. Evelyn's jaw tightened. She underestimated me. That afternoon, Collins made calls to court officials, requesting an emergency injunction. If the judge agrees, Amelia's assets will be frozen immediately, he explained. She won't be able to touch the money from the business sale, or even her own house and car. It will all be tied up in legal knots. Evelyn sat silently, absorbing his words. She thought of Amelia's smug smile, her laughter as she said Evelyn was too broken to run anything. That image burned in her mind, but instead of breaking her, it pushed her forward. By evening, Collins placed the final call. When he hung up, he looked at her with a small, grim smile. We have a hearing at 8 a.m. tomorrow. If all goes well, Amelia will wake up to a nightmare. Evelyn exhaled, her chest rising and falling heavily. Tomorrow, she whispered, she learns what it feels like to lose. That night, Evelyn returned home and sat alone in the living room. The silence was heavy, but it no longer felt suffocating. She took out a framed photo of Liam and placed it on the table. His smiling face stared back at her, and for the first time in days, she didn't cry. Instead, she spoke softly, as if he could hear her. I built everything for you, Liam. The business, the home, the life we had. She thought she could destroy me while I was at my weakest. But I promise you, she won't destroy your mother. She stayed awake again, going over every detail in her head, rehearsing what she would say when she faced Amelia. Her fear was gone. What replaced it was cold, steady determination. As the clock ticked closer to midnight, she stood by the window, staring at the lights of the city. Somewhere out there, Amelia was drinking her wine, celebrating, believing she had already won. Evelyn whispered into the night, Enjoy tonight, Amelia. Because tomorrow your world ends. The next morning, Evelyn dressed in black slacks and a gray coat. She tied her hair neatly, her eyes no longer dull but burning with purpose. She looked at herself in the mirror and almost didn't recognize the woman staring back. She wasn't just a grieving mother anymore. She was a fighter, ready to reclaim what was stolen. Mr. Collins met her outside the courthouse. Stay calm, he told her. Let the law speak for you. But when the moment comes, don't be afraid to look her in the eye. Evelyn nodded, her face steady. She followed him inside, her heels clicking against the cold marble floor. The courtroom smelled faintly of old wood and dust, but to Evelyn, it felt like the battlefield where she would take her stand. As they sat down, Evelyn's heart pounded in her chest, not from fear, but from anticipation. She knew Amelia would never expect what was coming. And for the first time since her son's funeral, Evelyn allowed herself the faintest smile. The courthouse was quiet that morning, but Evelyn's heart pounded like a drum inside her chest. She clutched her purse tightly, walking beside Mr. Collins. He was calm, collected, carrying a neat stack of files under his arm. He glanced at her once and said, Remember, Evelyn, don't let her words shake you. We already have the truth. Today she will see it. When they entered the courtroom, Evelyn's breath caught. Amelia was already there. She sat on the other side of the room, dressed in a bright red coat, her hair perfectly styled. She looked more like someone going to a dinner party than someone about to face a judge. When her eyes met Evelyn's, she smirked, leaned back in her chair, and mouthed silently, Too late. Evelyn didn't react. She sat down, folding her hands tightly in her lap, and focused on the judge who entered moments later. The proceedings began. Amelia's lawyer spoke first, a tall man with a slick voice. He explained how Amelia, as co-owner, had every right to sell the business. He painted her as responsible, decisive, the one who saved the company, while Evelyn was too consumed with grief to think clearly. Amelia sat there nodding, sipping water from a glass, acting like the victim of an ungrateful sister. Evelyn's chest burned, but she stayed silent. She waited. Then it was Mr. Collins' turn. He stood, adjusted his glasses, and placed a folder on the table. "Your Honor," he began, "what my client's sister did was not only heartless, but also illegal. Amelia Stroud sold the business while deliberately hiding key financial information. She failed to disclose her outstanding debts, unpaid taxes, and multiple personal loans that directly impacted the company's assets. By law, this invalidates her authorization to sell." The judge frowned, leaning forward. "Do you have proof of these claims?" Mr. Collins nodded. "Yes, Your Honor. Exhibit A through F." He handed over the documents one by one: bank statements, loan contracts, tax notices. Each piece of paper landed on the judge's desk like a hammer striking metal. Amelia's face slowly shifted. Her smirk faded as she leaned toward her lawyer, whispering urgently. Her lawyer skimmed the papers, his expression stiffening. "And that's not all," Mr. Collins continued. "The buyers of the business were contacted. They have been made aware that this sale was fraudulent due to Amelia's concealment of debts. They have already agreed to halt the transaction until this matter is settled." The judge turned to Amelia. "Is this true? Did you fail to disclose these debts before authorizing the sale?" Amelia's cheeks flushed red. I didn't think they were relevant," she stammered. "They are more than relevant," the judge said firmly. "They are the foundation of the sale's validity." Evelyn sat straighter, her pulse racing. This was the moment she had waited for. The judge cleared his throat. "Based on the evidence provided, I am granting an emergency injunction. Effective immediately, all of Amelia Stroud's assets, including proceeds from the attempted sale, will be frozen until this case is resolved. The ownership of the company will remain under review, but Evelyn Stroud retains legal control until further notice." The words echoed through the courtroom. Amelia's hand trembled. The glass of water slipped from her fingers and shattered on the floor, the sound sharp and final. Evelyn finally looked at her sister. Her voice was calm, steady, almost cold. "I told you yesterday, by today, you would lose something too." Amelia's lips parted, but no words came out. Her eyes darted between Evelyn, the judge, and the broken glass at her feet. The hearing ended quickly after that. Mr. Collins packed up the documents with the same calm precision as before. "It's done," he said softly to Evelyn. "She's trapped now. There's no easy way out for her." As they walked out of the courthouse, reporters and curious onlookers tried to ask questions, but Evelyn ignored them. She wasn't interested in making a scene. She only wanted Amelia to know one thing: that her cruelty had consequences. Outside, the air felt sharper, cleaner. Evelyn looked up at the sky and whispered, "This is for you, Liam." She didn't cry. She didn't smile. She simply walked forward, each step stronger than the last. That night, Evelyn returned home. She made herself a cup of tea and sat by the window. Across town, she imagined Amelia pacing her expensive home, realizing the walls were closing in. No more free money. No more easy escapes. Every luxury would now be under the court's control. Evelyn leaned back in her chair, staring at the stars. "She thought I was weak," she murmured. But she forgot, a mother's strength doesn't die with her child. She pressed her palm against Liam's photo and whispered, "Tomorrow, she will feel the weight of every choice she made." And for the first time since the funeral, Evelyn felt something close to peace. Weeks passed, but the storm in Amelia's life only grew darker. The court order had frozen everything she owned. Her house, her car, even the payout from the business sale, all locked away until the case was finished. Creditors began calling, demanding payments she could no longer make. The glamorous woman who once smirked at Evelyn was now drowning, but Evelyn never once checked in on her. She didn't need to. She already knew. For Evelyn, the days felt different now. The sharp, suffocating grief over Liam was still there, but it no longer controlled her. She had found something stronger: purpose. She still visited his grave, still whispered to him in the quiet hours of the night, but now her words carried strength instead of despair. One afternoon, Mr. Collins came to see her. He sat in her kitchen with a cup of coffee and said, "The buyers of the company have officially withdrawn. The sale is dead. The business is yours again, Evelyn." She stared at him, silent for a moment, then shook her head. "No, It was mine for years, but I don't want to live in offices and contracts anymore. Not after everything that's happened. Mr. Collins frowned. Then what will you do? Evelyn smiled faintly, her eyes glistening. Something for Liam. He always wanted to help young designers, to give them chances I never had. I'll set up a scholarship. His name will live on through every student it helps. Mr. Collins nodded slowly, respect in his eyes. That's a far better legacy than any company. Meanwhile, Amelia's world fell apart. The luxury car she loved so much was repossessed. Debt collectors swarmed her house. Eventually, the court forced her to sell the property to pay her mounting obligations. The woman who once mocked Evelyn for being too broken now sat in a small rented apartment, her pride shattered, her wealth gone. One evening, Evelyn decided to see her sister one last time. Not out of revenge, but out of closure. She found Amelia in her half-empty living room, the wallpaper peeling, boxes stacked in the corners. Amelia looked up, her eyes red from crying. "What do you want?" Amelia muttered, her voice hoarse. Evelyn stepped inside, her face calm. "I came to end this. You tried to bury me while I was burying my son. You thought my grief made me weak. But it made me stronger. Strong enough to take everything back." Amelia's lips trembled. "I lost everything, Evelyn. Isn't that enough for you?" Evelyn looked at her long and hard. "No, because you didn't just take money or a business. You took advantage of the worst moment of my life. That's something I'll never forgive." For a moment, Amelia's tears fell freely. She whispered, "I only did it because I was drowning. I needed money. I thought." "You thought wrong," Evelyn cut in coldly. "You could have asked for help. Instead, you betrayed me. That's the difference between us." She turned to leave, pausing at the door. Her voice was soft but sharp, each word cutting through the air. "I'm walking out of here, Amelia. This is the last time we'll speak. Remember this, you destroyed yourself." I just held up the mirror. Amelia buried her face in her hands as Evelyn stepped outside. The sound of her sobbing echoed faintly in the hallway, but Evelyn didn't look back. That night, Evelyn sat at her desk with a fresh folder in front of her. At the top of the page were the words, "The Liam Stroud Memorial Scholarship." She traced her finger over her son's name and smiled for the first time in weeks. She whispered softly, "This is for you, Liam. Every dream you couldn't chase. I'll make sure someone else can." Tears welled in her eyes, but this time they weren't just tears of sorrow. They carried something else, pride, hope, and the promise of healing. As she closed the folder, she thought back to Amelia's broken figure in that dim apartment. For a fleeting second, she felt a pang of pity. But then she remembered Amelia's laughter at the funeral, the cruel words, the smugness when she thought she had won. And the pity vanished. Evelyn had won her final battle, not just against her sister, but against despair. She had turned pain into purpose, and that was something Amelia could never take from her. She walked to her window, the night sky stretching wide above. The stars twinkled faintly, and she chose to believe one of them was Liam, shining down on her. With a steady breath, she whispered, "Rest now, my son. Your mother kept her promise." And for the first time since the funeral, Evelyn slept peacefully.